Well, a month from now, the Bush tax cuts expire, and the tax on inherited fortunes over $1 million jumps from 0 to 55%. Since 2000, Congress has tried half dozen times to resolve the debate over the estate tax. Joining us from Washington now is Clint Stretch. He's a managing principal at Deloitte Tax. He's also served as a lawyer for the IRS and for Congress's Joint Committee on Taxation. Clint, thanks for coming on the show. We've been hearing so much about income taxes, individual tax rates, and the debate there. What is actually happening in Washington right now with the estate tax?
Well, at one level, very little. The estate tax is stuck behind the debate over income tax rates. There are a lot of people who would feel that you shouldn't resolve the issue of how to tax large estates before you take care of the issue of how to tax middle-class taxpayers. And so this is an issue that's going to follow behind the Bush tax cuts. I would expect that Republicans might well say, we need to make a deal on all this, including the estate tax, get this all done this year. But there are big disagreements potentially between folks who want the law to be as it was in 2009, so a $3.5 million exemption, rates up to 45%, and people who want less of an estate tax. And there's not seem to be a lot of compromise discussions going on right now in the back rooms.
So this year you have this loophole of sorts, this 0% tax to the inheritors of an estate. So how do they plan for January and for the people that you might be handing on your estate to? Do we assume at this point that you get that $3.5 million exemption?
I would think that's a good assumption as to the worst case, that there's no more of a tax than one, with a $3.5 million exemption. Maybe we end up with a $5 million exemption or something even better than that, and rates probably certainly not higher than 45%, but maybe they end up at 35 or 40%. This is a negotiation that has to happen yet.
Now, those opposing, an increase in the rate of any form, called the death tax here, only 1% of Americans pay it. And in looking at these numbers that we've seen, it's like $17 billion in revenue that could go to the state, according to the Tax Foundation. So, did it surprise you to not see any conversation about the estate tax on the Deficit Commission side?
Well, the Deficit Commission is really working on very big issues, and they assumed that the estate tax would be as it was in 2009, so it would be rates to 45% and that $3.5 million exclusion. They did not cut it anymore, and they didn't increase it. This is not truly a Republican versus Democrat issue, the way so many things are in taxes. A lot of Democrats represent states with, biggest real estate values and wealthy people in them, and they look at a $3.5 million exemption and say that's a pretty good level. It's not hard to get there if you own a big house in Connecticut or California or New York. So this isn't a truly partisan issue. It's a question of where you put the tax.
Right, and some people would argue there's no differentiation between $1 million and $1 billion there in terms of the rate of taxation. So how do you plan for your inheritors if you pass away in January? I mean, do you look at the possible review of the tax code then?
Well, yeah, I think we very well may see the tax theoretically go back to the $1 million exclusion, rates to 55%, but nobody wants that law, so they'll come around next year sometime and fix the tax retroactively so people won't be burdened with that 55% rate. They'll whatever compromise they work out, they'll apply to all of next year.
So you are expecting that if we don't see any conversation about this or decision before December 31st, you say prepare for a Republican-dominated House at least to revisit this and repeal it?
Well, I would think the House would want to repeal the entire tax. I think at the end of the process, we'll go back to something that's like 2009 law or a little more generous.
A little more generous. So,
yeah, $5 million exemption, something like that.
Right. Didn't Ben Franklin say it's supposed to, the two certainties are death and taxes, and it seems we've got a whole lot of uncertainty on exactly those two things with this, Clint.
Absolutely.
But we'll have to keep checking back in with you. I appreciate the insight. That's Clint Stretch, Deloitte Tax.